1971. Two wars were
sunflowers. How did you get to the place where you felt that you could really draw something?
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to our audience. My name is Alyce Smith Cooper, and this is our inaugural podcast. And there's a good reason why we're introducing and bringing on this amazing person onto this podcast at this time. I'd like to introduce to some of you and present to others Geneviéve Jones-Wright. African-American sister. I call her sister because I have known her since she was a teenager. And I call her sister with great honor because she has grown up in the community that we both love, and she has flourished in amazing ways. And those ways I'm going to allow her to share with you now. Geneviéve Jones-Wright, welcome to our podcast, our initial podcast. And please introduce yourself to our listeners.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much for having me on today, but also as your inaugural guest. I really do count that an honor. And it has been an amazing relationship that we've shared. So I want to thank you publicly and formally for everything that you've given to my life and to our beloved community. I am from San Diego. I am a native San Diegan. I grew up in Southeast San Diego, which I think is a very, very important piece of my background because as you and I both know, our community is stigmatized. It has always been stigmatized and it still continues to be stigmatized. And so I live my life in a way that shows the honor that our community is due and that it deserves. I tell young people all the time that the reason why I chose to buy my home in Southeast San Diego after becoming a professional was to show young people that professional people like firefighters, attorneys, doctors, and you name it, they all come from our community and still live in our community. So I am an attorney by trade. I am also an adjunct professor for Point Loma Nazarene University. I served the county as a public defender for 13 years before striking out on my own to lead a nonprofit organization as the executive director, of which I'm a co-founder. My nonprofit works every day to hold government accountable to all people, but especially marginalized people through our impact litigation organization. And I'm a mother. You ask me who I am. I'm the mother of a little girl who is 14 months and the daughter of a beautiful mother who raised me as a single parent, who instilled in me the values that I have and cherish to this day. She is a retired custodial worker from UCSD Hospital. And all of these things really bring to light why it is that I'm running for mayor of San Diego, which is to create a city that works for all of us.
And that is why we're here today. The voting is already on. So we're not even certain that this is going to be aired on our social media platforms before the final tally is done. But even if it isn't shown prior to that, what is as equally as important as the fact that the things that you have shared is that, to my knowledge, you are the first African-American female to ever have her name on the ballot for as running for mayor for the city of San Diego. Am I correct about that?
So actually, Tasha Williamson was the last cycle. What we hope to do with this campaign is to elect the first African-American mayor in the history of San Diego. And what I think is also if not more important, is this is an opportunity from what I see to elect the first mayor that comes from south of the 8, because we very clearly need a mayor that cares about all communities, and that has not been what San Diego has done.
Exactly. So, pardon me if I misquote any facts, but please let us zero in on what this amazing young woman is doing as a wife, as a mother, as a public servant, and as someone who desires to serve this community in a way that it has not been served in the past. Can you please share with us what is your primary passion for what it is that you would like to do should you attain this position?
I want to create opportunities for every single San Diegan to thrive. And I talk about doing this in 3 ways, through 3 pathways. So the first pathway I would like to create as mayor is a pathway to housing and home ownership. We all see the humanitarian crisis unfolding right here in our city. A lot of people call it a homeless crisis or the homelessness problem, but it is really a humanitarian crisis. We need to put people in homes and not criminalize poverty. And we have to create opportunities for everyone to be able to generate wealth and accumulate wealth. And that can be done through creating opportunities for home ownership. So as mayor, that is something I will have a keen focus on. The second pathway is a pathway to whole and vibrant communities. We know that the 8 freeway divide is a very real thing, and we've seen the impact of systemic neglect. I want to invest and give resources to all of our communities, especially those who have been underserved and under-resourced and overlooked. I want to make sure that the opportunities that other more affluent communities have will also be given to those of us who are not as affluent. And then the third pathway is the pathway to trust and accountability in our city government. Right now, we do not have a city government that taxpayers believe are worthy of any more money, because we've seen a lot of waste and mismanagement of our taxpayer funds. And we've also seen a lot of corruption. But we've also seen where certain communities are overly policed and over surveilled and targeted. And our police department is also an extension of our government. They're government actors. And so I want to make sure that we are fairly treating all San Diegans and that we can build trust and accountability so that every single San Diegan believes that their government is working for them.
High aspirations and absolutely timely. And I would like to hear from you, from your heart, from your passion for doing this, how you think that your position as a public servant in the past is positioning you to be able to accomplish these things.
I served San Diego County as a public defender for 13 years. And in that role, I represented people who were charged with crimes, people who were poor. Some of them were guilty, some of them were innocent. But in every single case, I safeguarded the Constitution and I stood between the government and I ensured that people's rights were protected. Moving along to what I do now in my nonprofit role, I hold the government accountable and I change policies and laws. I hold the government accountable to every single person, but especially to marginalized community members. And so what that means is that my life's work has been dedicated to bringing people to the forefront who have been often neglected and left behind, people whose voices have not been invited to the table, people who are impacted but have no real role in decision-making processes. I find that that is critical for a mayor, especially in a city like San Diego that is very diverse. If we actually have a mayor like me who values the contributions and input of every single community member, we can be a world-class city. and we can offer world-class opportunities and really be a trailblazing city for other cities to look to solve solutions. And I always say that as an attorney, I'm a natural problem solver. I'm a public interest attorney, so that means that I'm always looking to correct wrongs. And we need a mayor who would be able to do that. San Diego is now notorious for the racial profiling that happens, and that's just one example. But what if we actually had a mayor who is very focused on making sure that we have equitable treatment for every single person in San Diego, and we can finally curb racial profiling? I think that that would be an amazing effort. And once we accomplish that, other people will look to our solutions. And I've been a person who's been a part of the solutions. I've written ordinances that have been passed unanimously by the city, but I've also written ordinances that the mayor has not had the political courage to implement because of who backs him and who has supported him and who gives him money, namely the police department. So I believe that all of my work, all of my expertise and my varied background and experiences really lends to my ability to be a mayor who could really get San Diego back on the right track and going into the right direction.
Well, you said at least 2 or 3 times the word that encourages me that you can indeed begin along this pathway and make great progress. You said we. How do you intend to be able to continue to work as a viable team member in this amazing system that we have that runs our city?
I am by nature a collaborative leader. I am a coalition builder. And I think that one of the things that has played a very big role in the city getting things wrong is by not listening to people in the community. So I would bring what I do every single day in my work to City Hall. And I talk about bringing the voice of the everyday San Diegan to City Hall. And this is what is missing. But also, in addition to that, we're not only not listening to impacted community members, we're not listening to the experts that are actually housed in our city department. We have years and years of reports and audits from our city departments that have been giving us warnings about exactly what happened on January 22nd with the flooding that our communities, mostly communities of color, endured. This was preventable. This was fully avoidable had we just listened to the folks who had, for instance, done the audit of our storm drain system. So I want to be a mayor who doesn't think she has all the answers. I do want to have a team around me of skilled people, but I also have to understand that there are answers and solutions from people who are not housed within the city. But we also have to value the input of those who we trust and pay as valuable voices in our city. And so I think that being a person who's willing to learn and being a person who, by just her natural way of being, is very collaborative, I will make great strides as a mayor because that is what we need.
There's no doubt in my mind that you're absolutely correct about the need for collaboration. But we also recognize that there is a systemic oppressor that is intending to keep us from collaborating, because together we stand, united we stand, and that has been so and continues to be. How do you intend to circumvent the systemic oppression that would be intended to keep you from that collaboration?
I talk about a shared vision. What I'm talking about implementing is a shared vision that I've seen be embraced. This is a vision for San Diego that is working for every single person that comes from people in the community, from a lot of neighborhoods. So when I talk about the shared vision, it really is a shared vision that has come forward, not just from my heart, but from community members. And I always say that we are better together. And if you really ask San Diegans what they want for their neighborhood, what they want for their families, I can tell you that whether they are in San Isidro or they're in Rancho Bernardo, we really all want the same things. And so I believe that when people come together, we can make changes. And you are absolutely right. We are talking about systemic problems and challenges we face. We are talking about systemic neglect and years of it, which is why we have so many underinvested communities. So we have to break the chains of systemic neglect. There was something that then council member Monica Montgomery Stepp did before she went to the county, which was champion an office of race and equity. If we can get the office of race and equity embedded into every single city department, not just put on an equity lens for some things, but actually have the purpose, mission, and values why we ever created this office of race and equity in the first place, and get this into the fabric of our city operations and our processes, we can then begin to break down the systemic challenges that we're facing. And let me just say it, the systemic oppression that has been perpetuated, the systemic racism, the systemic prejudice that we see, and we will be able to then have a city that believes in language access for people who are not primary English speakers, so that people can understand what the city is doing. They can participate in civic processes. Once we embed it, we will see a better San Diego that works for everyone.
I am absolutely astounded by the international complexion of our city. And when I say complexion, I'm using that word intentionally, because we have people from every part of the world coming to this city every day. I saw a news clip yesterday, a busload of people who were coming to this city, and they were being asked as they came off of the bus, "What country are you from?" Senegal, Ukraine, Brazil, Bolivia, Mexico, uh, uh, European bloc countries. People were coming off. If they would answer, they answered in their accent. They were speaking in English, but saying their country. This is an international port city. It could be a glowing example for humanity, for the world. How do you think that the leadership that you could bring and the complexion that you bring to it, I'm going to point that out. How do you think that can help San Diego?
So right now we're having a lot of conversations around migrants and the presence of migrants in San Diego. And I really think the conversations that people are forcing by certain narratives that are being put forth by certain mayors in El Cajon and other places, I'll just say that is doing a disservice, and we're not having the right conversation. The conversation we should be having is about San Diego's unique position as a border city, which means that the presence of migrants here is going to forever be with us. And how can we be a more welcoming city? How can we be a compassionate city? Whether San Diego is a pass-through point for migrants or whether we are the final destination, we have to care enough about human beings and provide our fellow human beings with the resources and the support that they need. San Diego is absolutely a beautiful melting pot. And some of our primary languages that are spoken right here in San Diego are not necessarily on the radar of the city. And I want to make it more inclusive. We should expand our language access program so that it is more than just English and Spanish. We have a brilliant Somali population. We have a lot of Vietnamese community members. So we need to integrate and expand other languages. We have to accommodate Farsi and Arabic. We have to accommodate Chinese dialects and languages. That is the beauty of San Diego. So I really love that you talked about the migrants that we are seeing and how they represent so many countries of the world. And I always say that I'm a citizen of the world. And so we have this beautiful opportunity to add to this melting pot that is San Diego and really capitalize on the cultures and the traditions of all of these groups that are coming and just create an even more beautiful San Diego.
Without a doubt, without a doubt, we have a an icon in the middle of our downtown city, anyway, in Balboa Park, that has in the past has made efforts to incorporate an international community. But I'm wondering if you have an idea of how we might be able to expand that, given your passion for expanding the languages that are spoken.
So I think that it really comes down to investing heavily in our Office of Immigration Affairs. I think it comes down to making sure that the city is fully dedicated and committed to creating an inclusive city for everyone. So I mentioned language access. If we think about what happens at city council meetings and other hearings that are hosted by the city, think about how many people would be able to actively engage and participate if they were given live interpretation services in their language. We do not see enough of that. So it really starts with being able to actively participate in civic processes. That is how you make people feel that they belong and that they are a part of the community. One of our biggest jobs as a city is communicating with residents. We need to communicate in languages that people understand so that they know what's happening in their government. So this idea of expanding language access is a conversation we've been having, but that we have not done a very good job of. So I want to invest in our language access programs. I want to make sure that whatever the city puts out on the website, on documents and resources and other materials, that they are in languages other than English and in Spanish, so that more people can be a part of this civic process. But again, I also think we need to invest consistently, continuously, and meaningfully in our Office of Immigrant Affairs, because we have to know how we can provide further resources and support for our immigrant communities. And I don't think I've said this, but I was actually the first legal director for a nonprofit called Partnership for the Advancement of New Americans. And PANA, as it is called, shorthand, works with refugees, asylum seekers, and immigrants. And I really got to see firsthand how the way the city works can be a barrier to civic engagement and why people don't feel that they're included. And so I have that with me every single day when I speak about the need to create a more inclusive San Diego.
I'm impressed, very impressed by that line of thinking. And I'm also aware of the fact that there are many people who were born into English speaking languages here in this city who are marginalized and who do not feel that they can be heard in those same settings that you're talking about. And I'm wondering if there is a thought about how to get that particular community. Many of them are older, but many of them are not. Many of them are young people who have just checked out because they don't believe that they can be heard. They don't believe that they'll be received, accepted, or acknowledged. Have you given any thought to that?
Absolutely. There is an entity called the U.S. Immigration Policy Center, and it's housed at UCSD. And in one of their reports, they talked about how our foreign-born population in the city speaks 70 different languages and dialects. So we are talking about a city that is very diverse in the languages that we speak. And you're absolutely correct that some people were actually born here, but they belong to families where English is not the primary language. And how do you bridge that gap of the older generations who have limited proficiency in English? How do you get to them so they understand that they are valued? And how do you show them the respect of being a citizen here in this city? And even if they're not a citizen, still showing them that they are valued as a resident in San Diego whose voice should be respected and heard. The thing that I think about is the showing by the city. I think that the city has done terribly in actually showing that we care about every single person and demonstrating that we actually value the voices. So I think, and this is going to sound a little simple, but I think that if we do a better job as a city by doing the things that I just talked about, we will actually really show these people, these communities, that they do matter. The other thing that I think about as a solution is, instead of having everything online, right? You talked about the older generations. Instead of having everything online, which I see a lot of city council members say, well, here's a survey. I'm thinking, I don't know that our elder population is tech savvy, or they're going to go and download an app on their phone, or they're going to use some sort of online survey. I believe we have to do one-on-one personal interactions. We have all of these staffers who are supposed to be ambassadors. They represent their district, even in the mayor's office, but also in our city council offices. You have people who are dedicated to certain neighborhoods. These people need to be out in the field, knocking on doors and talking with people in a language they can understand. And I don't care if the staffer has to use Google Translate, but we've got to get in front of people, and the city has to do a better job of showing that they want to include more people. And so I feel like we've been disconnected because of the internet. And although it connects us in a lot of ways, I think it also does a disservice, and we've forgotten about the one-on-one personal interactions. And so I want to see the city doing that, especially because we know that things can be broken down by neighborhoods and communities. I also want to see us doing more listening sessions and meaningful ones. We are talking about hiring a new police chief right now. And I can tell you that when we had community forums for each district, they were very short noticed, and they happened at a time in the process where it was very clear to community members like me that our input really wasn't going to be regarded, because they had already gotten their top candidates. And I'm thinking, well, what if the community members had come in well before you narrowed it down to your favorites? How about the community giving criteria and requirements for what you should be looking for. And then going a step further, how about you talk to these marginalized community members who are absolutely going to be impacted by policing and talk to them in their language? Because we know that a lot of the people who are surveilled are people who don't necessarily speak English. And we have this as data. These are people who may practice Islam and who speak a different language. These are the people we should be talking to. But how do we get their input when we're putting out these community forums and information about these community forums only in English, and it's very short notice, and we're not targeting them?
There's lie in the structuring of the question and in the passion with which we attempt to get the questions answered. I am appreciative of your passion, your intention, and as a senior, I have some other concerns, and you've mentioned them, particularly with the flooding that has taken place in and around my very own neighborhood, and now the person-to-person crisis intervention stations that had been set up, like at ECC and at YMCA and other places. Now the personal contact is being closed down, and only digital approaches are available to people. Those same people who may or may not be able to download an app and complete a survey via the digital divide. So those are things that are germane. They're absolutely in our face, under our feet. Some of us are still trying to clean up after the flooding situation. I still have sandbags in my front yard, and I was lucky that it was just mud and not water in my door. So I'm grateful. I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to speak with you. More than grateful that I can speak with you with the knowledge that I have of your intention, your nurturing, your commitment, and the folks that have your ear. People don't need to know that I know your mother, but I do. And I know what she says to you, and she holds you accountable. There are other people in the community who also look to you for that. And I know that you have responded in that way. So I'm extremely grateful to have had this opportunity to hear your voice, to hear your passion, and to recognize the connectedness that you have and the understanding that you have of how the systems work. And our absolute hope is that you have great opportunities to put these ideas and your integrity to work for our city. So do you have anything else that you would like to say to our audience?
Well, I want to thank you once more for this opportunity. And what I would leave with your audience, your beautiful audience, is that we can absolutely create and build a San Diego that works for everyone. We should never stop hoping. We should never stop dreaming. We should never stop with our positive thinking. We can never think that we are too far down in a hole to dig ourselves out of it. We have each other. So that's what I want to leave with your audience. There is no problem too big for us to solve if we just problem solve together.
And there's a song that we sing in our community, and it's not all about singing, but it's about believing the words. And it says, lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the freedom that we were intended to enjoy, that we have helped to build and are still helping to build. Thank you very kindly for being with us. Many blessings to you and your family.
Thank you.
And we wish you the absolute best. To our audience, thank you for joining us. I think the terminology is like and share. I'm new to this digital experience, but if you like it and share this, more people will hear it, and we'll be able to get more such interviews and more such committed information. Thank you very kindly. Many blessings. God bless you all.